Christianity. Christianity holds diverse views on divorce depending on denomination and interpretation of Scripture. In Roman Catholicism, marriage is considered a sacrament, so divorce is not recognized, though annulments can be granted in certain cases. Protestant traditions are generally more flexible, allowing divorce in situations such as adultery, abandonment, or abuse. The Eastern Orthodox Church permits divorce but views it as a tragic failure of marriage, usually allowing remarriage only a limited number of times. Many Christians look to Jesus' teachings in the Gospels, where he condemned divorce except for cases of sexual immorality. However, pastoral care often emphasizes compassion and the well-being of the family involved. In modern practice, Christian attitudes range from strict prohibition to acceptance of divorce as a last resort. Overall, while marriage is upheld as sacred, responses to divorce vary widely within Christianity. Islam permits divorce, though it is generally discouraged and seen as a last resort after reconciliation efforts. The Quran outlines specific procedures, including waiting periods, counseling, and financial obligations to ensure fairness. Divorce can be initiated by the husband through talaq or by the wife under certain conditions, often through legal petition. The Prophet Muhammad described divorce as one of the most disliked permissible acts in the eyes of God, emphasizing its seriousness. Custody of children and financial maintenance are important considerations in Islamic divorce law. Islamic scholars encourage mediation and arbitration before a marriage is dissolved. While divorce is allowed, it is surrounded by guidelines to protect the dignity of both parties. Thus, Islam acknowledges the reality of broken marriages, but stresses responsibility and justice in ending them. Judaism. In Judaism, marriage is a sacred covenant, but divorce is permitted when necessary. The process requires a religious document called a get, which must be granted by the husband and accepted by the wife. The Torah allows divorce, but rabbis strongly encourage reconciliation before the process moves forward. Traditional Jewish law views marriage as a partnership and divorce as an unfortunate breakdown of that union. In modern Jewish movements like Reform and Conservative Judaism, divorce is more openly acknowledged and accepted. Orthodox communities still maintain stricter rules, sometimes leading to difficulties if one spouse refuses to grant a get. Divorce is not considered sinful, but is treated with gravity and respect. Ultimately, Judaism provides a legal and spiritual framework that allows for divorce while affirming the sanctity of marriage. Hinduism traditionally upholds marriage as a sacred, lifelong duty rather than a contract. Ancient Hindu texts emphasize the permanence of marriage, making divorce rare and socially discouraged. However, Hindu law has evolved, particularly in modern India, where divorce is legally recognized and allowed under certain conditions such as cruelty, abandonment, or incompatibility. Hindu philosophy views marriage as both a social and spiritual partnership tied to dharma, family, and cosmic order. Divorce is often seen as disruptive to these duties, though compassion and justice are considered in cases of suffering. In practice, divorce rates are relatively low in Hindu-majority societies due to cultural and religious influences. Some sects may be more accepting than others, especially in urban contexts. Overall, Hinduism allows divorce today, but still idealizes lifelong marital unity. Buddhism does not view marriage as a sacred religious institution, but rather as a social contract between two people. Because of this, divorce is not inherently condemned, though it is generally discouraged if reconciliation is possible. The Buddha emphasized compassion, understanding, and reducing suffering, which extends to marital relationships. If a marriage brings more suffering than happiness, divorce may be considered acceptable. Buddhist teachings encourage spouses to practice mindfulness, patience, and loving kindness, but they recognize human limitations. Divorce, therefore, is treated pragmatically, without heavy moral judgment. Cultural interpretations vary, with some Buddhist societies treating divorce more strictly due to social norms. In essence, Buddhism allows divorce when it promotes peace and reduces suffering for those involved. Sikhism upholds marriage as a sacred union of two souls meant to walk the spiritual path together. The Sikh gurus encouraged harmony, equality, and mutual respect in marital relationships. Divorce is generally discouraged and not emphasized in traditional Sikh teachings, as marriage is intended to be lifelong. However, Sikhism is also pragmatic and compassionate, recognizing that some marriages may fail due to serious issues such as abuse or betrayal. Modern Sikh communities, especially outside of India, are more accepting of divorce when necessary. The focus is always on fairness, dignity, and the well-being of both partners. While Sikh scripture does not outline detailed divorce procedures, community practices have adapted to modern legal systems. Thus, divorce in Sikhism is rare, but recognized in cases where marriage cannot be reconciled. Taoism approaches marriage and divorce through the lens of harmony and balance. A healthy marriage is seen as one that flows naturally with the Tao, fostering peace and mutual respect. When a relationship becomes filled with conflict and disharmony, divorce may be considered a way to restore balance. Taoist philosophy does not strongly condemn divorce, as it values natural change and the cyclical nature of life. The emphasis is on living in accordance with the Tao and reducing suffering. In practice, cultural Chinese traditions influenced by Confucianism often made divorce socially difficult, even if Taoist thought was more flexible. Modern Taoist-influenced communities are generally pragmatic about divorce. Overall, Taoism views divorce as acceptable if it helps individuals realign with harmony and well-being. Baha'i Faith. The Baha'i Faith teaches that marriage is a spiritual and physical bond meant to foster love, unity, and service to God. Divorce is discouraged and considered only when all efforts at reconciliation have failed. The process requires a year of patience, during which the couple must live apart and try to resolve their differences. Only after this period, if reconciliation is impossible, is divorce permitted. The emphasis is on thoughtful decision-making and avoiding hasty separations. Baha'i teachings highlight that divorce, while allowed, is a last resort and should not be taken lightly. The community often provides guidance and support during this process. Thus, the Baha'i Faith recognizes divorce but frames it within a spiritual journey of reflection and responsibility. Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism historically placed strong value on family and marital stability, encouraging faithful and lifelong unions. Ancient Zoroastrian texts allowed divorce under specific circumstances, such as betrayal, infertility, or abuse. Divorce was permitted but not celebrated, as it was seen as disruptive to social and spiritual order. In many cases, reconciliation was encouraged before separation was finalized. Modern Zoroastrian communities vary, with some being more accepting of divorce due to contemporary legal and cultural changes. The religion emphasizes honesty and responsibility within relationships, so ending a marriage dishonorably is discouraged. Divorce is not viewed as inherently sinful, but rather as a breakdown of an important duty. Overall, Zoroastrianism allows divorce while upholding the ideal of marital stability. Jainism. Jainism emphasizes non-violence, ahimsa, truth, and responsibility in all aspects of life, including marriage. Marriage is seen as a partnership for spiritual and social growth, but it is not considered a divine sacrament. Divorce is discouraged, as harmony and non-harm within relationships are strongly emphasized. However, Jainism recognizes that separation may sometimes be necessary to reduce suffering or prevent greater conflict. In practice, divorce rates among Jains are low due to cultural and religious values. The community encourages reconciliation, patience, and compromise before considering separation. Modern Jain communities accept divorce under extreme circumstances, though it is not ideal. Thus, divorce is possible in Jainism, but treated as a last resort. Confucianism. Confucianism values family, harmony, and social order, placing marriage at the core of these ideals. Divorce traditionally conflicted with the Confucian emphasis on stability and filial duty. Historically, men in Confucian societies were allowed to divorce under certain conditions, but women faced significant restrictions. The philosophy encouraged maintaining family unity even in difficult circumstances. However, Confucianism also stresses benevolence and fairness, so abusive or unjust marriages were sometimes acknowledged as exceptions. In modern contexts influenced by Confucian thought, divorce is accepted but still carries cultural stigma in some societies. The focus remains on preserving harmony, both within the household and in society. Overall, Confucianism discourages divorce, but allows it when necessary for justice or peace. Shinto. Shinto regards marriage as a social and cultural institution rather than a strict religious sacrament. Because Shinto has few rigid doctrines, divorce is generally treated as a personal and social matter rather than a spiritual failing. Traditional Japanese society, influenced by Shinto, once discouraged divorce due to family honor and communal harmony. However, Shinto rituals do not condemn or prohibit divorce, leaving it up to individuals. In modern Japan, divorce is common and often handled through legal and social channels rather than religious ones. Shinto priests may bless marriages, but rarely intervene in matters of divorce. The emphasis in Shinto is on purity, harmony, and renewal, which can mean starting fresh after a failed marriage. Thus, Shinto does not strongly oppose divorce and allows personal choice in such matters. If you enjoyed this video, you won't want to miss the next one where we dive into every major religion's perspective on abortion and reproductive rights. We'll explore how faith traditions around the world approach this sensitive and often controversial issue, highlighting both shared values and striking differences. Stay tuned and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss this important discussion.